The next morning, at the station. Standing outside the station, I can't help but smile to be back. The station is cast in a bloom of sunlight which pours through the glass-windowed walls, making everything inside seem to glow. It seems spring is really on its way now, its arrival announced by the few drops of sunshine from the daffodils bursting in the pots outside of the station doors. Even some pink-faced pansies have revealed themselves around the base of the trees along the street. It's refreshing to see it all, a burst of color and brightness after the stark coldness of the facility. Pushing open the doors, I step through and my steps echo in the foyer. I glance up to see Douglas slouched at the front desk, phone in his hand. It suddenly feels like I haven't been away at all. I fold my arms and roll my eyes. Ah, Officer Friedman, hard at work, I see. My voice obviously catches Douglas's attention, the kid looking up and doing a double take before shoving his phone into his pocket with practiced speed. Oh, Detective, you're back from your seminar already. Obviously, Rebecca had already given me a cover for my absence. Pleased I'm back so soon? I ask in teasing. He clears his throat, brushing his bangs from his face. Yeah, totally. His attention slides to his pocket where his phone is. It really is like I've never been away. It's strange having a normal, everyday conversation with Douglas after everything that's happened. I had been asked, firmly but politely, by the agency to keep things under wraps. Letting the general public know about supernaturals would only incite panic, especially with one on the loose around Wayhaven. Not only might it endanger humans, but it could seriously endanger supernaturals. It wasn't like I had much choice but to agree. I'm not sure what half of their agents are capable of, and I don't want to find out the punishment for going against them. Still, I don't feel good about it. The supernatural world, while uncertain and possibly terrifying, is a part of our world too. Everyone should know that. It's not right to keep something this big from everyone. Secrets never end well, and they always come out eventually. I can't agree with the agency on this point, even if I have to keep their secret. My thoughts are interrupted by the doors opening behind me. Unit Bravo marches inside in their usual imposing formation, and Douglas barely gives them a look of greeting. Come on, I say, nodding my head to gesture further into the station. Let's go to my office. The team follow my lead, and as I turn to close the door, I hear the familiar bleep-bloop of Douglas's phone. I give a half smile. It's amazing how the sound can settle me so quickly back into work. Whoa. I can't help but let the word exhale from me as I enter my office. The last time I'd seen it, it had been a wreck of mangled furniture and broken windows. Now it is exactly the same as it had been, as though the fight had never taken place. Even my desk, shattered from a blow, is in perfect condition, except for the smashed corner still held together with silver tape. The agency is pretty good at cover-ups, Farah mutters as she passes by. Obviously, I reply, shaking my head to rid my surprise. I continue on to sit behind my desk. My gaze flutters down to something bright and yellow on my keyboard. Tina's handwriting is scrawled over the memo note, which reads, Glad you're back. Even more glad I didn't have to sit with you during a stuffy seminar. A smile catches my lips at the note, but I place it back down as Unit Bravo begins to settle into their places around my office. We need to go on the offensive with Murphy, Adam says suddenly, voice as strict as his stance. He'll be desperate to find you now, especially because he must know that the agency is on his trail. Nate nods. Yes, the general plan is to find him before he finds you, Detective. I really like that plan, I reply. Always good to catch the bad guy before, well, he catches me. Nate chuckles. Very true, Detective. I don't fancy waiting for Murphy to send more of his thralls anyway, Farah adds. I thin my lips at the thought. The swollen, milky-eyed faces of the attackers are still very clear in my memory. We'll start at the hospital, as Agent DeWolf suggested, Adam says. You really think we'll find anything there? Farah asks with a shrug. There must be some reason Murphy impersonated a blood technician. I let out a sharp breath. And there might be something still there if he hasn't gone back. The team nod in agreement, all except Morgan, who instead sparks up a cigarette, seeming to ignore the general conversation. We should split up. Adam and Farah, Morgan and I. Some of us head to the hospital with the detective, while the others check in with the agents posted nearby. Nate suggests, glancing between Adam and I for confirmation. Adam gives a nod as I do. A jolt of confidence strikes through me to finally be fully with the team. A moment of quiet falls over them, and I realize they're waiting for me to decide who to take to the hospital. Nate and Morgan should probably come with me, I reply, shifting my coat further around me, glad I hadn't bothered to take it off if we're heading out again already. It obviously takes a lot of effort for Morgan to contain the groan she wants to let loose at my words. Adam nods, then takes a step away from the team, closer to my desk. Don't do anything stupid. Your safety is paramount. Thanks, I say in reply to his sort of concern, but I'll be okay. That's why I'm taking backup, right? He glances over the others before looking back with a nod. Good. I actually think I hear relief in his simple reply. Shall we meet you there, Detective? Nate asks, breaking out of conversation with Farah. I frown. You don't want to drive together? My words trail off as I realize. Right, you're probably faster than cars. Not all cars, Farah replies. Some of those expensive sports ones go seriously fast. Not that I've tried to race them or anything. Then I'll get going and meet you there. I'll wait in the parking lot. I give a nod of farewell and then head out of my office, prepared for the task ahead. Back in the office. Adam watches the detective leave with far more interest than he should have. He quickly snaps his gaze away, turning on his heel to face the others, only to find Farah standing right in front of him with a long smirk. Can it be? Is our almighty leader attracted to... Farah makes a loud faux gasp. A human? A flush of heat crawls up Adam's neck. He can't tell if it's from anger or from the young agent hitting closer to the mark than Adam would like. Don't be foolish, Adam growls. He marches further into the office, painfully aware of the sudden curious gaze from Nate. I wouldn't worry, Farah coos, flopping back into the seat. I'm pretty sure she likes you too. The statement makes Adam's frown deepen. My opinion of the detective is based on his skills, not on anything else. Sure, Farah replies, and Adam almost crushes the table edge he's holding to keep himself from saying something he'd quickly regret. We should have the agency send over everything they have on Murphy. Now that the detective knows everything, she should have all the facts at her disposal, Nate says. Adam flashes a grateful gaze in his direction for the change of conversation. Farah sighs. It's a shame to think we'll be leaving once this is over. I've kind of grown fond of this place and our Detective DeWolf. She's done very well considering what's happened, Nate says, leaning against the back of a chair and shoving his hands into his pockets. When was the last time a human agreed to keep working with us? They're usually happier working with demons or imps than they are working with vampires. Farah shudders at the word demons, but tries to bite down the reaction so the others don't notice too much. I may have been human once, Morgan adds, but I still don't understand them. She then glances down at her phone. Agent DeWolf is faxing over the file now. You might want to get to the machine before the bobblehead does. Nate glances out through the glass partition to where Tina has come up from the basement lab, a mass of styled hair sitting atop her head. It is hard to dispute the comparison, but Nate shoots Morgan a reprimanding look anyway. I'll get it, Adam says. We'll meet you back here off to the hospital. Nate nods. Hopefully we won't be too long. The team then fly into action, Nate and Morgan heading out to catch up with the detective at the hospital, while Adam and Farah try to cut Tina off before she can reach the fax machine. At the hospital parking lot. After squeezing my car once again between two fancy, pristine, and polished sports cars, I maneuver myself out the door and slam it shut. My car creaks at the harsh action. Fresh air hits me and I take a gulp of it. Soon, I know I'll have to descend into the disinfectant layer of the hospital. It's spread like a flat cream monstrosity against a few trees that are attempting to bloom, making the building look a little less harsh against the landscape. Are we going to be here long? Morgan asks. I whirl around to find the two striding towards me. I'm not sure whether to be impressed or terrified at how quickly they must have gotten here on foot. Nate shakes his head. As long as it takes to get the job done. Morgan actually nods at the comment, and her shoulders slouch in resignation. Inside, we pass through the waiting area. The receptionist barely glances up at me with an acknowledging sneer. Both Nate and Morgan shy away from the intense fluorescent light from overhead, preferring to walk along the one wall where the light doesn't hit so much. They don't make conversation as we walk, the silence accentuated by the lack of people in the hospital, except the light footsteps of a couple of nurses who pass us by. The attention of the staff shift to my colleagues as we go, and I can't really blame them. The strikingly attractive vampires certainly stand out from the usual, plain crowd of Wayhaven's population. Here we are, I say as we reach the door to the lab. The sign still hangs askew and still says the wrong name. It reeks of him, Morgan says, nose wrinkled in disgust. Her hand seems to fall instinctively to her pocket to draw out a cigarette, but one disappointed look from Nate, and Morgan rolls her eyes and decides against it. Do you want to wait out here? Nate asks, concern the only thing in his tone now. It may be worse inside. Morgan nods. Thanks. I look over Morgan, her body hunched with her arms pulled tightly against her sides and eyes narrowed. She looks as though she's trying to avoid taking a breath. Are you going to be okay? I ask. She stares at me, surprise on her face before frowning. I think I'll cope. Sarcasm is the only thing in those words. Sorry for being concerned, I mutter. I'm sure she appreciates it, really, Nate says, throwing Morgan a reprimanding glare. With that, I turn and grasp the doorknob to twist it open and head inside. Inside the lab. Last time I'd been here, the laboratory had been spotless. Now it looks like a crash site. Heaps of files strewn on the floor, half-toppled beakers spilling out bright liquid contents on countertops, and a bottle with something unidentifiable oozing out onto the ground just before our feet. The only things remaining untouched seem to be the machines around the edges. They're whirring gently to themselves, apparently uncaring whether anyone is around to tend them. It seems Murphy didn't appreciate having to leave in a hurry, Nate comments, before beginning to tiptoe through the mess. With the place in such a state, and barely room enough for the two of us to wander about in, I wonder if I will be much help. Nate obviously has keener senses than I do for searching out anything useful. But I decide to stay anyway, beginning to pick my way through the mess to head towards one of the counters. A collection of beakers have been smashed, and a selection of vibrant-colored liquids ooze out of them and drip off the sides. It's not exactly pleasant, and I don't think they'll be useful to the case, so I spin on the spot to see where to head next. It's then I notice Nate at the back near a computer desk, his gaze focused on work and body taut with tension. He's apparently also unsure of what to be looking out for. He seems to be struggling to get the piece of technology to do what he wants. A loud click of his tongue signals his annoyance as he pushes the mouse around the desk with about as much efficiency as a toddler with a paintbrush. This obviously isn't your normal day-to-day type of duty, I say, stepping a little closer. I begin looking over a side table stacked with precariously piled folders. He chuckles and shakes his head. No, not exactly. Investigation work is not our specialty. Are you enjoying doing something different to the norm? I shift one of the folders and a few topple from the top, spilling their contents onto the lino floor. Actually, yes, he replies, as though only just realizing it himself. It's been so long since we've done something different. It's easy to live life just going through the same motions, you know? I nod, bending down to collect up the folders that fell. There's nothing useful in them, unfortunately. Detective, Nate suddenly calls. I glance over my shoulder, Nate's face highlighted by the monitor he's staring at intensely. You should see this. I instantly drop the folders back down and move over to join him. A bubble of hope rises in my stomach that he's finally found something. Take a look, Nate says, gesturing to the bright screen. I peer down and look over a series of graph-like pictures. Red, blue, and yellow lines arch and dip on the tables. I click the mouse to the next, now seeing a page of codes, also in a variety of colors, next to each other in rows. Looks like DNA results, I reply, clicking through a few more, all of them different. Maybe Murphy was looking into the mutation too. My assumption also, Nate replies, then points at the next set of images as I click through. They resemble abstract art. Those are blood slides, not just human either. Looks as though it's been mixed with vampire blood. I gesture to some of the bright blobs on the picture. You mean those? Nate nods, a slight grimace making his nose wrinkle. I nod slowly at this revelation. I know it must be significant to Murphy's motivations, but I'm still unsure what he might be planning. My gaze flickers over the screen and I frown. Look at the name of the slide. Nate leans closer to see. The image title says Janet Greenland. I continue perusing the file names, pursing my lips at the discovery I've made. These are all named after the victims. And each one has blood slides mixed with vampire blood. Nate's voice trails off in thought. He seems to be injecting them with it. I didn't realize his experiments were of this nature. I turn to face him. Is he trying to turn them into vampires? Nate half smiles. That's a slightly more complicated process than just injecting someone with vampire blood. Oh! Curiosity prickles at the edge of my mind, but I let it go to focus on the case at hand. I'm not entirely sure what would even happen to someone with the mutation, Nate adds, straightening back up and putting his fingers on his chin. Murphy obviously hopes to find out. Knowing what he wants to do to me really doesn't help settle my nerves, I say, glancing at the blood slides. I try my hardest not to think about what the victims must have suffered. No, I can't imagine it does, Nate replies. But knowing this might help us figure something out, like how to avoid that from happening. How exactly? Nate leans forward toward the screen again. We'll have agents come in and take all of this back to the facility. They may see something in this that we haven't had a chance to. I nod, hoping he's right. The door to the lab suddenly opens, Morgan peering inside with thinned lips. We making a move soon or what? Nate ignores her, focusing on me instead, his head slightly cocked to one side in observation of my tension. You know you can rely on us to help you, Detective. Pulled out of my thoughts of Murphy, I glance between the two agents. Well, I reply, leaning closer. I think I can rely on some of you, at least. My focus shifts to Morgan in the doorway, who is leaning heavily on the doorframe with a bored expression. Nate chuckles. Hopefully you'll come to trust us all. I smile in response. That's a big ask. Fair point. Nate casts a glare over Morgan as he replies. Are you done yet? Morgan asks with a heavy sigh. Yes. We'll inform the other agents to clear this all out. Then we'll head back to the station to meet up with Adam and Farah. I give a nod at the plan, realizing I do actually feel like I'm settling into the team. Then a sudden uncertainty creeps over me. I wonder if it's such a good thing to be settling into anything involving a group of vampires. Later that day, back at the station. The rest of the day is spent getting back on top of work. Even if not much happens in Wayhaven, it seems that the paperwork creates piles on my desk out of nowhere. Unit Bravo had headed out to help the other agents pack up everything from Murphy's lab, and it's not until I'm just thinking about leaving that they return. Ready to head home? Nate asks as he strides through the doorway, ducking a little to avoid hitting his head on the top of the doorframe. Yeah, just about, I reply, slamming shut the drawer to my desk where I'd hidden some of my memos. They're mostly from the mayor wanting an update on the case, something that can wait until I'm more settled tomorrow and have actually thought about what to say. Farah bustles past Nate and smiles. Hope you've got enough room for all of us. I try to stifle a groan, remembering I'd agreed to let the vampires play guard over me at home as well. To be fair, I'd been pretty out of it on pain medication from my head wound at the time, and Rebecca was obviously keen to take advantage of that. Standing from my chair to pack up my things, I give a shrug. It's certainly going to be, cozy. I can almost hear the groan that Morgan only just manages to suppress. We will ensure your safety, no matter the location, Adam says, with such confidence that I can't help but feel a little encouraged by the words. My computer hushes its loud droning as I turn it off, and I make to grab my jacket. I'm pretty sure I could manage myself, but sure. Ready to go? They all nod and we make to leave. Passing the front desk, I nod a goodbye to the night shift volunteer, who returns the gesture. Then the group of us head outside where the sun guides our way in a cocktail palette of pinks and yellows. At the apartment block. I walk up the stairs, followed by the imposing team of Unit Bravo. It's nice to be coming home. The apartment block is comfortably quiet, compared to the stark quiet of the facility. Birds chirp outside, their songs whistling in through the windows which line the stairwell, and the evening sun glitters through the recently washed glass. The gentle thumps of people moving in their apartments is an odd comfort, too. The lazy sound of music pervades into the hallway from one of my neighbor's rooms. I draw to a stop outside my door, my key already in hand. Pushing it into the lock and turning it, I can't help a strange sensation washing over me. This apartment is part of my world. Inviting these 4 vampires in will be like the supernatural finally invading the last space of normality that I have. I shake the feeling away, realizing that now I know the truth. It's unlikely I'll ever be able to keep the supernatural fully out of my life. "Here we are," I say as I unlock the door, letting it swing open to reveal my small apartment inside. Farah steps up beside me, her gaze casting over the space like a health inspector over a restaurant. "Geez, detective, ever heard of a vacuum? Or polish? Or a laundry basket?" I cringe, forgetting the state my apartment is usually in. "I have a busy job, all right. I don't always have time for housework." "Looks like you've never had time for it," Farah scoffs. "Farah, enough," Nate says behind her in warning. "Just saying what I see," Farah replies before moving into the bright, if somewhat messy, apartment, still glancing about the room with a shake of her head. The rest of us join her moments later, and I shut the door when they're all inside, kicking an empty bottle out of the way. As we huddle inside the cramped space, I suddenly wonder where I'm going to put them all. Someone can probably sleep on the sofa, the rest might... Nate interrupts me before I have to think of more makeshift beds. "It's all right, detective. We can go for days without sleep. We'll likely be up all night keeping watch." I let out a loud sigh, my shoulders relaxing a little. "Well, that's a relief. I don't think I would have had room for you all." "Looks like there's more than enough chairs, and they will do us just fine," Nate adds, to which I give a nod. "Good." The group quickly begin to take up their places throughout the apartment's living room. Farah flops into an armchair, legs and arms splayed over it. Morgan leans against the side dresser, looking surprisingly at ease. Her thumb flicks open a lighter and then closes it again before repeating the action over and over. Nate stands near the center, running a hand through his hair, a tightness straining his jaw. Adam moves toward the wide window on one side before sliding his gaze over the rest of the room and to the front door. I can almost see the cogs whirring in his mind about how to defend the area. It's a sudden reminder of my first meeting with the team, when they'd all just about managed to fit into my office during introductions. This is just like the first time I met you all. They glance at me in confusion. "When you all came to my office." "Oh, right," Farah says with a nod, barely paying attention. "You meant that first meeting." I arch a brow. What other first meeting could I have meant? Farah's attention turns fully to me, a slow grin forming wide on her face. I notice Adam and Nate share a quick, tense look before stepping forward. Farah speaks before they intervene. "How about the time you sprayed our almighty leader with that revolting pepper spray?" My hands tense at my sides. It's difficult to shake away such an accusation. I plant my feet firmly to the ground and frown. "I've never pepper sprayed Adam." Adam's face contorts into a strange expression, but my inspection is thrown off as a laugh erupts from Farah. She almost topples from her chair in her amusement. "This is getting better and better," Farah calms enough to look at me again. "But you honestly don't remember? Did we make that little of an impression, detective, when we bumped into you outside of that warehouse?" Adam groans, loudly. Then he proceeds to rub his hands over his face. "What warehouse?" I ask, trying to make sense of the whole situation. Farah leans forward, grinning even further, if that's actually possible. "Come on, detective. It was dark, there was a bad guy, a fight." "A fight? What are you—" My words snap to a stop as I realize just exactly what she's talking about. "So that was you at the warehouse! Geez, I knew it!" "Yes, it was," Adam replies firmly. "It was from before we knew it was you who would be our next assignment. A regrettable time for us all, I'm sure." There's a bite to his tone which gnaws against me. "I'm sorry I pepper-sprayed you," I say. My voice echoes around, the words heavier than expected. But I had to protect myself. We're not faulting you, Nate says before Adam even gets a chance to open his mouth and reply. You did everything as you should. It was just a shame we were not at liberty to identify ourselves at that moment. It would have likely saved a lot of trouble. Yes, I reply firmly. It really would have. Adam eyes me for a long moment, then turns away and strides a few paces over to the other side of the room. But you must have grown to like us at least a little by now, eh, Detective? Farrah continues, ignoring the team leader's tense reaction to the conversation. I like you all, I reply with a smile, but it falls from my face quickly. I just don't know if I can trust you yet. Give it time, Nate replies. Hopefully we can show you that you can. I give a nod, wondering when that time will come. So what are we doing now? Morgan asks, apparently bored of the current conversation. You carry on as you normally would, Nate says to me. We'll spread out about the apartment and keep watch. That's it? I ask, unable to keep the uncertainty from my voice. He nods. That's it. If Murphy tries to make a move, we'll be ready, Adam adds. I suppress a shudder at the idea of my home being invaded by Murphy or those thrall things. Then I'll go get ready for bed. See you guys in the morning. They all nod, but I find my attention being drawn to two different places. At first, my gaze falls on Nate. It is met by a warm, open expression in return. My smile grows as his does, and I almost find myself captured there longer. And yet, almost against my will, I turn to find Adam on one side. The team leader seems to sense the attention. He shifts to look at me directly. The icy green eyes that exude such calmness also hold a terrifying amount of depth to them. My breath turns shallow, and I feel like I'm drowning in his gaze. He snaps his focus away to the window with a small frown. Turning, I quickly move into my bedroom, trying to ignore the strange stir of feelings. A while later, in the shower. It's easy to forget the luxury of a simple shower. Sure, they had showers at the facility, but it's this one I needed, my own shower. I smile. It's good to be home. I let the hot water pummel over my skin, drowning away my thoughts in the steam and scent of shower gel. The fog of heat almost blinds me, but I continue to stand and enjoy soaking in the water. The jets pound against my tense muscles like a well-needed massage. I sigh into it, reluctant to get out. But eventually, I clamber out and head back into my bedroom to dress. A few minutes after I've dressed, there's a knock at the door. Come in. Farrah opens the door with a friendly smile. Detective. Something wrong? I ask, the welcome ease to my muscles now twinging with sudden tension. Farrah holds up her hands and shakes her head. No, just came to see you. Okay, I reply. When she continues to linger by the doorway, I nod my head towards the bed, indicating she should sit. What's up? Farrah shuffles forward and drops down onto the bed, the mattress sinking as she does. It's not exactly been an easy ride the past few days. I just wanted to see how you're doing. It's the first time I think I've ever heard her so genuinely concerned. Kind of undecided, I say with a quiet chuckle. The fact that supernaturals are real is pretty thrilling, but being targeted by one cuts through that excitement. She nods and sighs. Yeah, I can get that. At least you're willing to give the rest of us a chance. I've seen some humans go real doolally after having the supernatural world shoved in their face. She chucks her hat into the air and then catches it, swiftly repeating the action. Most don't even want to work with us after finding out. There's a sting to her voice that's hard to miss, even as she tries to hide it by concentrating on her hat. You've had other people find out about you before? Not normal people like you, she replies. Agents, human ones, who'd rather be partnered with demons than vampires. The hat flops into her still grasp. Thanks for, sticking around. The gratitude forces a smile from me. You're welcome. Thanks for checking in on me. Anytime, Detective, she says, flashing a charming grin, any remaining seriousness quickly vanishing. She yanks her floppy hat back on before standing up and heading back into the living room. Moonlight refracts through my room, the light so soft that I'm reluctant to shut it out as I snap the curtains closed. The silver light is replaced with a harsher yellow one emanating from my bedside lamp. The deep shadows cast about my room seem darker than they used to. As I'm about to clamber into bed, my phone vibrates frantically on my bedside table. I grab it up and answer it as I continue to slide beneath the duvet. "Detective DeWolf," I answer, voice slightly tired from the day. "Hello, Angel." Bobby's voice makes me tense so hard I almost fall off the bed. "It's 11:30, Bobby. What do you want?" The idea of talking to Bobby while in bed makes me shudder, and I quickly shift to stand back on the floor. I can hear a car pass by him on the other end. "I think we need to talk." "What could we possibly have to talk about?" "I'm so glad you asked." My blood seems to freeze in my veins as a very familiar scene plays out through a recording on the other end of the phone. The piercing sound of glass shatters through the phone. "What the hell?" my voice yells. "Great," Morgan's voice. "Thralls." I yank the phone away from my ears slightly. "That's enough." Shit. It's the only thought which pounds inside my mind at that moment. Well, until Bobby breaks it with a drawl to his voice. "Feel like talking now?" "Where are you?" "In the parking lot of your apartment building." He's nothing if not prepared. I forced the thought away. "I noticed your new, friends haven't left your apartment yet." My brow arches as I hear a slight tightness to his voice when he says that. In normal circumstances with normal people, I'd hazard a guess at jealousy, but that ship sailed long ago with Bobby. "I figured you wouldn't want me making introductions until we'd had a chat first," he says. "Fine. I'll meet you in 5. I slam my thumb down on the end call button, so hard that my hand twinges with pain. Not wasting any time, I yank on some clothes. The threatening idea of Bobby making his way up to knock on the door forces me on faster. It's then I realize that I have a problem. I can't exactly waltz out the front door. The vampires would tag along because of their bodyguard duties, or at least ask where I'm going, but I really don't want them meeting Bobby right now. Well, it's more accurate to say it wouldn't be a good idea for Bobby to meet them, especially until I can figure out just exactly what he thinks he knows. My gaze darts around my room in frazzled thought until it drops on my window. I stride over and yank the curtains back open. Outside are the black, gleaming, newly painted railings and ladder of the fire escape. Slowly, I ease open the window. It creaks only once. Then I slide myself through the gap outside. Grabbing hold of the ladder, I twist myself around and begin climbing. Unfortunately, being so tired and moving practically in the dark, my foot slips halfway down. My knee cracks against the metal. I grip my teeth to keep from making a sound at the intense throbbing pain, but I notice the light in the downstairs apartment flick on. I shuffle down as quickly as I can with my new limp, eventually making it down to the parking lot to begin searching for Bobby. Further into the parking lot. Bobby is already waiting not too far away. He leans with his arms outstretched on either side of him to rest against the wall. His black blazer has pulled slightly away with the position to reveal a toned torso outlined beneath a tight white shirt. He's always had a lazy attractiveness about him, half-lidded eyes, shapely lips, and a smolder that can make anyone's skin tingle. As I approach, one corner of those shapely lips pulls up into a lopsided smirk. "Nice to see you, Celeste." I limp over and draw to a stop in front of him. His brow arches as his focus shifts to my bruised leg. "You all right there?" I let out a small groan, bending slightly to rub at my knee. "Fine." My gaze shifts about the darkened parking lot, even deeper in shadow near the building. "I suppose in your line of work, clandestine meetings become a habit?" He smiles, though it doesn't reach his eyes. "I do what I must for a good story." After a few quiet moments, Bobby pushes himself off the wall to step a bit closer, recorder grasped in hand. My focus flickers down to it, my stomach nodding at the thought of what it contains. "How did you get the recording?" I ask. Bobby purses his lips. "I did tell you at the station that I'd come to bug you. You were open to interpret that as you wanted, even though I meant it quite literally." My face contorts, pinching painfully into anger which I barely keep down through clenched teeth. "You bugged my office." "No need to get upset. I needed a news source after the mayor cut me off from that dull son of his. You know how it is. It's just business. His voice is a mixture of soothing and mocking, and it takes all my willpower not to wipe it from his smug face. I could barely believe what I was hearing that night. A fight in your own office. The police station. Bobby continues. And you can imagine my shock when I rushed back to the station to check on you, only to find no evidence of a fight at all. Even more worrying was that you'd been called away to a seminar the very next day. I stare at Bobby for a long moment, actually processing everything he said. It's difficult through the all-consuming nerves that are flooding through my system. Part of me knows I have to throw him off the trail here, but another part of me is struck by the fact that Bobby was actually concerned for me. Wait, I reply, the worry dropping from my face into disbelief. You went back to the station because you were worried about me? Being a journalist doesn't make me a monster, Celeste. I do care. His expression tenses. Especially when it comes to you. That's certainly the last thing I expected to hear. I shake the thought away before it invades my mind even further. But this recording is bigger than you or me, he says, bringing my focus sharply back to the matter at hand. It's evidence. Of what? I scoff, a plan beginning to formulate in my mind. Unless you mean evidence of me listening to the radio in my office. You can take it to the police captain if you like. Make it evidence of my lack of work ethic. The triumph drops from his face, but he's not as deterred as I was hoping for. You often shout at your radio, do you? I shrug. It's a bad habit. It's easy to tell he doesn't wholly believe me, but it's also easy to see that he won't risk something this big being little more than what I say. He shoves the recording in his blazer pocket, and I hold back a sigh at finally having the blasted thing out of sight. Maybe you're right, he says finally, but there are some things that make this case seem like more than just a couple of simple murders. His gaze shifts up a couple of floors to the black window of my apartment. Your new entourage for a start. Keeping my shoulders from tensing at the mention of them is difficult, but I concentrate on keeping a steady mask on my face instead. Wayhaven hasn't had murders in ages. It's hardly surprising that the police department might need help from people more experienced in dealing with it. Sure, he says, though he actually seems less sure of himself than the start of this conversation. Then if there's nothing to it, I suppose I should leave you in the case alone. That would be appreciated. I turn on my heel and begin walking back over to the fire escape, hoping that Unit Bravo hasn't noticed my absence. I suppose it might be best not to tell them about this wonderful conversation, at least until Murphy is dealt with. At least Bobby's intrusive little bug would have been destroyed in the fight. This all still smells big, Celeste, Bobby calls from behind me. A distinct aroma of government secrets, and you know how good of a bloodhound I can be if there's a scent to trail. I keep walking, though his words batter against my back heavier than I would like.